award is named after USU's first Vice President for Research, Wynne Thorne, and it's given annually to a faculty member who has a body of research over their career that is truly outstanding. That faculty member has done the majority of their work at Utah State University. On that note, today's recipient of the award is Dr. Michael Twohig. Dr. Twohig is a professor of combined clinical and counseling psychology in the Department of Psychology. He's the co-director, along with Michael Levin, of USU's ACT research group. Dr. Twohig is an outstanding researcher, and I just want to mention he's also done something that's a first in Wynne Thorne history. This year, there's a financial award that goes along with the Wynne Thorne. Michael generously donated that to our student food pantry this year. And so I think we can all recognize how important that is, particularly right now. And so I just wanted to recognize Michael for that generous. And with that, I'm going to hand off the microphone to Interim Dean Sean Whiteman.
Good afternoon. As Lisa said, I'm Sean Whiteman. I'm the Interim Dean of the Emma Eccles Jones College of Education and Human Services. And it's an honor to serve in this role, especially on days like today, where we recognize one of our truly outstanding professors. Dr. Michael Twohig, professor in the Department of Psychology, is one of the most accomplished and influential scientists in our college, university, and beyond. Dr. Twohig's research has a profound effect on how we understand and treat a wide range of mental health concerns. Over the course of his career, he is focused on developing, refining, and disseminating acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, a psychological treatment approach that helps individuals live more fully and intentionally, even in the presence of difficult thoughts and emotions. His pioneering work has been instrumental in demonstrating ACT's effectiveness across diverse clinical populations, including those struggling with obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, trichotillomania, and other behavioral challenges. Dr. Twohig's scholarly record speaks for itself. He has authored or co-authored more than 300 peer-reviewed publications, scholarly chapters, and books that are widely cited across clinical psychology and behavioral science. His work is internationally recognized. He's among the most cited researchers in the field of ACT, with over 18,000 citations as of this morning. And his studies have helped establish Utah State University as an international leader in contextual behavioral science. In fact, USU is often described as a hidden gem by others. However, it's the work by scholars like Dr. Twohig that truly puts a spotlight on our college and university. Beyond his individual scholarship, Dr. Twohig is also a dedicated mentor and collaborator. He has guided dozens of graduate students, many of whom have gone on to distinguished academic and clinical careers. His commitment to rigorous science, ethical practice, and student development has strengthened the culture of research excellence within our college and our university. And his contributions as a mentor were recognized last year by Utah State University as the 2025 Graduate Mentor of the Year, in addition to this research recognition. Dr. Twohig's contributions have been recognized through numerous awards, including honors from the Association for Behavioral Cognitive Therapies and the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science. His work continues to influence how psychologists and clinicians around the world approach the treatment of behavioral health, bridging the gap between research and real-world impact in ways that few scholars achieve. Please join me in recognizing and celebrating Dr. Michael Twohig for his extraordinary research achievements and for a meaningful difference his work continues to make in the lives of individuals, students, and communities in Utah, the nation, and across the world. I can think of no one more deserving of Utah State University's Wynne Thorne Career Research Award than Dr. Michael Twohig.
All right, you'll play with the mic volume. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sean. It's humbling to have those words said about me. It's humbling to have you all here. As I hear that, it's weird. I don't feel like I'm at that level, but I guess at some level I am, and thank you all for being here. It's really quite cool. I tried to prepare some thoughts, and they're not so much about my research, or sort of my thoughts on being a professional and being a professional researcher and being a professional in other ways. So I hope you'll find some parts of it interesting, and we'll do questions. There'll be some time for questions at the end. So first thing, there's an incredible number of people to thank. Probably the most is my wife, my kiddos. I think when I reflect on what my wife's done, Katie, she's up front, you know, she's been here since truly the beginning, when I knew nothing about psychology, when I started learning about psychology, when I got obnoxious about psychology, wouldn't stop talking about it. And you know, I remember one time she was talking to my advisor's wife, and the wife said, "Don't worry, it gets better." You know, like he'll chill out at some point, which she knows is true and not true at the same time. Yep. USU has been fantastic to me. I was walking over here reflecting that it's not that the different people who are above me at different levels have said yes to everything I've ever said, but they've always tried and they've always supported me, whether it be from the level of the president, the department head, Gretchen Peacock, who I think I saw walk in, who has been in charge of me in a couple ways. People have always tried to solve things and make them better, and I really appreciate that. So I know there is no USU, right? No one person is USU, but this institution has always backed me up, and I really appreciate that. You know, when I go into the collaborators, like in my department, if I look around, like I saw Amy here, I see Greg Madden here, Tim Shahan, there's all these different people, Carl White, Ron Gillum. Like, if I just go through, there's so many people I've done projects with, and it's been a cool place, the way that everyone has supported me. You know, I'll get to talking about Mike Levin and Karen. Mike he's somewhere out there, just been an amazing, team member, co-parent, whatever you want to say it. It's been, you've really made this a lot of fun. Same for Karen. I think she's out of the country presenting. And there's a lot of people from other universities, people who've supported the work that I really appreciate. So these are the things I'm going to go over. I thought I should probably explain what I do, because there's some of you who only know me from like riding bicycles together or, some other way. And I'll explain what I do at my work. And then I have some thoughts on running a research laboratory. When I wrote it, I was sort of thinking this could be directed to a newer faculty member. I have some thoughts for grad students, and I just have some general thoughts on like maybe what a psychologist would say about being a professional. So on to what do I do? Some of you recognize these two individuals, some of you don't. They were my master's mentor and my PhD mentor, and this is all an accident, right? Like I didn't have some grand plan of like who are the right people to work with. But if you know them, they're both gigantic people who are weirdly successful, like that level that's hard to understand. And the neat part about being around them is I saw how to do this. Like I saw how to run a lab, I saw how to help people get to where they want to be. And if you go into the examples of like Steve, like I saw how to create ideas and get them out to a lot of people and in a way that has an impact. And Steve is interesting is that like nothing scares him. Like there is no level that's too high. And I don't think I have those goals, but it was really cool to be around someone like that to sort of show you like what would it be like to change a field, or like the DSM is something we use to diagnose. Like he's like, I think we can get rid of that and have something better. Like that's kind of a bold idea, but like he just does that. Like he's like, let's change the way we diagnose issues. So being around people like that was great and a huge influence that those 6 years with these two guys, it impacts me every day. So here's what I do. The people in my lab would understand this graph. The people who aren't in my lab may not. What's going to happen if I press this? It does what I want. So psychology is interesting. I was thinking about I'm not going to make funny noises when I move. All right, it was kind of whistling before when I moved. Psychology is interesting because like if you're in maybe math or some other type of, I think psychology can be a hard science, but we're never going to be that precise. We just can't be, because the ideas and things that we study are loose. So we study things like thinking. Like what the heck is thinking, right? If I got all the psychologists together, we'd have a lot of ideas like what thinking involves. What is cognition? What is anxiety? Right? Depression, like what is the feeling of depression? Like you could write a whole book on what is the feeling of depression. So we have a lot of these sort of deep ideas in our, it doesn't do anything. Did it on my hand. Like at the philosophy level, is that one brighter? Sure. Well, it's not that exciting, but it's a little bit. So our lab will spend time going like, what is a thought? What is this construct that we're working on? So like I work in trichotillomania. Like what is trichotillomania? Well, it's when people pull their hair out, but what else does it involve? What are the thoughts? What are the feelings? And we dig into issues like that. And then we go to the next level, which is like, how do we study things like this? Like how do we study something like cognition? Right? And there's people in this room whose careers are like, well, I'm going to figure out like how cognition is and how it works and how it relates to the brain and how it relates to emotion. And you can spend your whole career in that little basic science thing, like understanding how these principles go together. Like I see Tim Shahan out there. I know he studies a lot of things, but one of the things he studies is forgetting. Like, how do you not know something? How do you unlearn something? Well, and he'll tell you it's very complicated. And you can spend millions of dollars and still not know what it is. And then from there, we have these like basic principles and we try to develop them into things that people can kind of understand, like constructs like depression, like reinforcement. Like everyone's using reinforcement every day. Like if you're complimenting people, trying to get things to happen, we're all using that. But then if you go talk to Greg or Amy or Tim, reinforcement's really complicated, right? And you can spend your whole career researching that construct of reinforcement. And then, it just keeps getting more like amorphous, like assessment of constructs. Then how do you track these things? How do you track someone's depression? Well, what it really gets down to is we give them a sheet of paper and they fill out these things. Well, it's never going to totally capture it, but we have to capture it somehow because we got to figure out what to do with these people. And people in my lab, we do that. We develop methods to track how these things happen. And then the last three are kind of my favorite. Like, how do we move them? So if my client is feeling a lot of anxiety and we want them to maybe, in a very loose way, feel less, well, how do I do that? They want that. They're struggling with that. So we create methods to move these psychological problems. And sometimes we'll just do studies of, like, like my one student did, how do you increase motivation? She had people put their hands in ice water, and then we tried different psychological skills and they could keep their hands in longer under different conditions, right? We start learning how to help people through these issues, which is the targeting constructs, which then we roll into treatment packages, which then I can take to a clinic. I can hand them this book and say, do this thing. Or I can create a training video and put it online and people can learn how to target particular problems. And then if you go to the very last one, well, our state is graduating probably 200 to 250 master's level therapists in just one category who then come out into the field and say, teach me how to do therapy better. I can tell you because they come to my trainings. Well, how do you train this number of people who want to know how to do therapy better? I mean, it's daunting, it's overwhelming. And we do our best to do that, right? And I'll do that on Thursday, and then on Friday, we'll have a lab meeting back to what is a thought, right? And this is our interesting roundabout of my field. Well, that worked? Okay, there we go. So in our laboratory, this is my laboratory with Mike Levin, the guy right there with the plaid shirt on. We do two big things. Again, this is me kind of showing you what I do for research. We develop and test psychological interventions for a variety of disorders. Anxiety and OCD are my favorite, and then OCD has this kind of path after it, which is like trichotillomania, skin picking, hoarding. Like we just had a book on how to treat hoarding come out last week. Clinical perfectionism, I like those areas a lot. They're sort of my favorites, but I'm actively working in testicular cancer. I'm working in burnout for mental health professionals and other health professionals. We're working in all sorts of areas. And Mike, what he brings to the lab, I bring a lot of the in-person work and he brings a lot of this adjunctive work, which is he builds apps and websites and bibliotherapy, and then we have these technologies and we can use them on their own or integrate them. And they're really neat because you can get services out to boatloads of people really, really fast. And our work is kind of integrating all of this. Oh, I've been doing this for a while now, so we have a big group. Karen Munoz isn't here. She is a wonderful person. I have enjoyed working with her immensely. So has Ty Aller, but I haven't worked with him as long. So Karen, 12 years ago, Beth Foley said, Karen, you should go talk to Mike. And she came to my office and she said, I have these kids. The parents find out the kids are deaf at birth. Carl White, thank you for discovering how to do that. And so if they are raised wearing hearing aids or a cochlear implant, then they're raised hearing, which means they can be raised more likely to be speaking and have quicker and easier interaction, right? And this is a complicated area. There's more to this, and she said, could you help me figure out how to get the kids to wear the hearing aids? And I'm like, oh, I'm a psychologist. Yeah, like what you're saying is the kids need to wear their hearing aids more. They don't want to. I would think we could figure that out. Truth is, it's infinitely complex. There's all these layers to it. The parents are overwhelmed, the children are overwhelmed, the audiologists are overwhelmed. There's all sorts of thoughts, feelings, cognitions going into this. But anyways, it turned into this really cool line of research, which is the integration of psychological skills into a field of audiology. And I don't know who's an audiologist in here, but you all know how to do that, but you can do it more, you can do it better. And so for about 12 years, we've been digging into how to do that more and better. And we have a book that's all finished of how to do it more and better that we think will be used in audiology programs. It's literally done. I've seen the book cover. And then Ty Aller, he's gonna get a much shorter description, but we recently started collaborating with him. Mike collaborates with him more, but he does this kind of work in high-functioning autistic individuals and getting trainings out to people. So our lab does a lot of collaboration with these two. So I often think of our core lab, and then we have these two arms that go out. And I think it shows the breadth of our work. I can't even tell you what all these symbols mean because I got help making this talk, and I had the list of all the schools that I have that are on my CV in the last 5 years, right? People I've published with in the last 5 years. And these are just all different institutions that we're doing work with. And how that happens is we do cool work. And people say, could you help us do our work? Or could you help solve this problem? Like that's how I'm doing testicular cancer. They're like, we are doing ACT for survivors of breast cancer, and we want to do with testicular cancer. How would you tweak the intervention for this group? And I was like, oh, I know how to do that, right? And I could just jump in and help them with their work. All right, so that's what I do. Here are some of my thoughts, my musings on running a research laboratory. So if you were a newer faculty member, and I don't know if any of you are, I think the main thing for me that I noticed is the look of how I ran my lab when I started to how I run it now. I'm doing 2 different jobs, and that the need to adjust as things adjust, as the needs change, and it's just really, it's weird. No one trains you how to do that. There's no storybook of what this looks like. So I remember my very first studies, I didn't have a lab. I would see research participants in my office, because I do outcome work. So it's they would sit across my office and I do therapy with them and they fill up measures. And it's totally different to what I have now, which is this crew over there is doing all this work, and then they swing into my office once a week and tell me all the cool things they did, right? And then once a month or however often, they bring me the whole paper and say, look at all this cool stuff I did. I was doing everything at the beginning. I wrote the IRB, I ran the participants, I wrote the study, I handled all the revisions. And now we're to the place where there's just all these people involved, and it's just this much larger process, and I had to shift. If I kept doing it the way I was doing it, we would be doing 1/4 as much work, right? It would be cut down dramatically, and we couldn't support all the people that we're supporting. I think just knowing it shifted. And how did it shift? Well, obviously, I can do things quicker than I used to be able to do them. I have more people. And then the 2 other that I really want to talk about is this idea of systems. They're kind of weird. I was talking to my friend who's a urologist. So his system and what he does on a daily basis is very different than what I do. But we were talking about the joy of developing more efficient systems. And I think some people in their career, they're like, well, I got to do something else. Like Doug Woods, one of the guys I showed first. He was a really successful researcher. He became a dean. He became a department head. He became a different dean. And now he's a provost, right? I know him. He wanted that next thing. And that's cool. That's who he is. And Steve Hayes, the other guy I showed, he also wants to do the next thing. I think there's something really cool about getting better at the thing you do. Being able to do it more, and not efficiently, that's not that important to me, but in ways that have a bigger impact, in ways that are broader, in new ways. I like doing ACT research more efficiently, bigger, broader, better. And I find that to be enjoyable, just growing that out. So I don't need the next thing. I like doing this, and I could keep doing this, and it'll be fun to do this even better. And I find as we do it better that our students get trained better, that students who can do it better want to be here, and it almost just gets easier. I have some thoughts on collaborators. Obviously, I have a boatload of them. I think a key thing is a collaborator who can help you accomplish things isn't enough. You have to enjoy the process. Life's too short to work with the collaborators who make your life hard. There are collaborators who are so interesting, who help me grow, who support me, are funny, are interesting, do neat things. Stick with them. If you're having a hard time, go a different direction. This one, if I had, look at the little, hope your eyesight's great. The fill in the shortcomings, and I believe I have it over here. This one person, I don't have it anymore. She gave me this document on how to make a team. And what it basically said is, see who you are and what do you need to make your team. And that was probably the most helpful thing I ever got in terms of who to take for grad students and who to do collaborations with. People who fill in the things you are not good at are going to be so much better for you. So Mike Levin, for example, we match in ways, and then we're really not the same in a bunch of ways, and that is way better, right? The students who work with us are like, we are different, and that's wonderful. When I have historically collaborated with someone who's like me, it doesn't work, right? Like, we both sit down, we come up with 10 ideas apiece, and then we walk away and no one wants to implement them, right? Like, I am an idea guy. That is, and then people who like to move things forward, oh, we work wonderfully together. Some people know Clarissa Ong. She's an example of a graduate. Oh, she's like making tables, doing spreadsheets, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I love that. And I'm like, oh, please, if I could never proofread a paper again, I'd be fine, right? So there's teams that are going to work well, and it's not like the other person's like, oh, I'm getting the short end of the stick. There's people who like these types of relationships. I had a very well-known graduate student, he's well-known now, and we didn't work together. And honestly, when I reflect on it, it's like you can't have two Steve Jobs sitting there going like, here's what should happen, here's what should happen. Like, one of us has to want to implement it, right? We can't just both be that guy. Okay, so anyways, I believe that goes on to who you take as a grad student. I think if you're taking the one with the best record, that's only half the thing. Like, it has to match who you are and then what you can offer them, and that's when things are going to work better. Boom. Now, I also find this one, guys, I had to tweak it because I realized I wasn't totally right on the one photo. If you work in the lab with me, I don't know if you find this true. If not, then I need to keep working on it. I do not see myself as the person who tells you what to do. I see us, probably the best analogy is maybe like I see myself as the quarterback on the team. Like, we're all team players, we're all working together. I need you, you bring things I don't have, right? But at some level I have to call the shots because those are the rules. But like, I do see myself as a teammate in this lab functioning, not the guy who's in charge of it. And then what I think it results in is I have these grad students, or Mike and I have grad students, who can just walk out of here and keep doing it because they were already doing it. Like, it's not uncommon to leave our lab with books and grants and a pretty large CV. And the end of this career is not to have a bunch of stuff, but if you can do that, you know what you're doing, right? You can walk into a lab and keep doing these kinds of things. So I try to keep that level playing field, but while knowing, well, ultimately I do have to sort of be the boss. So some thoughts on being a grad student. You've all probably heard me say this, so I guess I'm speaking to the row right there. Anyone else? One of the things I find is, back to that first line when I said, like, this all grows, or you have to grow. Really the skills that seem to get you into grad school is being perfectionistic. How well does being perfectionistic work at a faculty level? Not so great. The demands are never ending, and they just keep piling up, and we have to learn how to be sort of speedy. And I think what I do a lot in the first couple of years is this sort of like thoroughness that they did, how to use that when you want to use it and how to be more flexible with it when you don't have to use it. And that's kind of how I think you can move quickly in our field. That if you kind of think of your perfectionism as a superpower that doesn't have to be used at all moments. Like, yes, do it here. But in another one, like clinical notes, I supervise all these students. Do I try to get you to write your notes better or shorter and faster, right? always shorter and faster. I'll say, how long does note take? And they'll say 15 minutes. And I'll be like, you have 10 minutes between clients, and in there you have to go to the bathroom, get some more water, and write this note. You got to learn how to write notes in 3 minutes, right? Or 5 minutes. So knowing that you have to grow. We've all heard this expression, and people say it all the time. But the next slide says kind of the same thing. Like this is a long, long road with constant pressure that never ends. My wife sometimes says, I don't know how you do this job. Because if I'm correct, you don't like having a lot of things hanging over your head. I have had things hanging over my head for 20 years straight. I have never been caught up. It's just, even at the moment, I'm incredibly behind. And I learned how to sort of sit in that place, I think because I do take care of myself. So learn how to get your sleep, learn how to eat your meals, see a therapist if you need to see a therapist, go to the doctor, go to the dentist, learn how to type faster, learn how to read well. Just all this global growth is going to make everything just easier. And boy, I was in grad school a long, long time ago. And a lot has happened in that time. And I'm glad I've been taking care of myself at 47 so that I can keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not at 47 and completely burnt out of this job. I still like this job because I think I've been balancing things. And part of this is, if you're counting pubs, it's going to get old. If you're counting dollars, it's going to get old. One time, Steve Hayes said to me, if you want to make money, go buy stocks, right? Psychology or academia is not the place to go make money. Do it because there's something about this that's interesting to you. There's some process in here that's enjoyable. Tim Slocum and I have had conversations about, if you're caught up in the process, it'll always feel reinforcing. There'll be something to grab onto at all moments. So if you're in the process where you're I can't wait to get this off my plate, find something about it that's interesting, that you can be interested in that moment. And we are judged. You get your grants because you published enough. You get your raises because you published enough. You get tenure because you published enough. Your students get jobs because you help them. So it's okay to be aware of the outcome. Don't just totally ignore it. There's people who are I just like the writing process and, or I just, whatever. It is okay to watch the other thing, right? And enjoy the process. You've all heard me say this, grad school's practice. People, if you're sitting in a meeting and you're I don't know if I should raise my hand or not, this isn't the game. This is the thing before the game. This is where you get to say the stupid thing, and then someone can be oh, you could say it a little better like this. Or if you're I don't want to give this paper to my advisor because I don't know if it's good enough. I'm not the journal editor. I'm your advisor. I just want to I want to shape up your behavior. So enjoy this time to make mistakes, to jump in, to do silly things, to try things you wouldn't understand, to ask for help. Sometimes I'll explain something to a student. I'll say, did that make sense? And they go, yes. And I'm there's no way that made sense. That has to be somewhat confusing. Tell me why it's confusing so I can teach you. But I know it's in your heads that you're well, I don't want Mike to think I'm dumb. Right? It doesn't matter because we're in practice, right? You're not at the job interview right now. So dive in. And I know it's hard, but I'll be honest, when I look back, I do wish that I took those opportunities to learn things. And anyone else notice what an interesting picture this is? Look where we are. There's no building there. Yeah. So this is one, I've had conversations with students lately about this burnout thing. So another practice thing is I think that I'm moving at about my fastest pace, but it's a pace I can keep doing. This is my race pace. I can just, whatever amount of work I'm putting in, this isn't a problem. I'm not burning out. I'm not going to fall apart. This is my pace. So part of grad school, I think, is finding your pace. What is this way that you can work where you'll be productive and you're doing cool things, but you're not at a pace you can't sustain, and you're not at a pace where you're below where you could be. What is that place for you? And I think it's just, you just keep trying things, and we're like ships, we're constantly changing our speeds and our directions, but work on finding that for you so that when you get there, you can adjust. I had a colleague who's not in this department anymore. He said, I feel like my pre-tenure years are just lost. And what he meant is like he worked way beyond his pace, and he just like doesn't even know what happened those 6 years. I don't want you to have that. I'm glad I didn't have that. Like that's not really a way to live. Like find something that works where like life's good. And this, I think, is from working with Steve Hayes. That name means something to some of you. You can put the Maya Angelou quote. I'm going to go with the Matrix quote. Watching people like I had a guy in my grad school. What is his name? It doesn't matter. I'll think of it in a second. He published 7 books in grad school, right? Because he worked with Bill O'Donoghue. Mike understands this. And Bill O'Donoghue has no limit to the number of books he'll write. Like, is he a 100-book guy? Like, he's one of my professors. So like there's these ideas of what you think you can do. And then if you go hang around with these other people, there are these other things you can do. Like there's really, like grad students can write books. Grad students can get grants. You can go give your own workshop. I was at a dinner once with a grad student and I saw Renee walk in. I think Renee was at my first workshop I did at USU. And so my student said, how'd you know you could do a workshop? I was like, I don't know, I just did it. Steve used to do them, so I did one. She's like, well, I could never just walk in there and do it. Well, why not? Like, who says you can't just go do things? Like, if you have a license, you can go put an online course up. You can write a book. Like, these things of like, here are our limits. Like, of course, they come from somewhere. They come from our society and our training and our cultures. But I find sometimes that chatter about our limits are not really related to the actual contingencies out there of the things you can and can't do. And that's been a cool thing of having really impressive advisors in that like my mentors, my models didn't really have limits. So I don't really know what a limit is. And then I think if you've worked with me, I'm kind of like a goofy person to be around because I do act like that. Like I can just go do that because those are the people I saw. And I don't know, I think it's been cool because I've been willing to jump into things that maybe having worked with someone else who told me I can't, I wouldn't have ever tried it. So our students write grants, our students write books, they give workshops. I send you out to give talks without me. Like you all know that, I've done it a bunch of times. Like you guys should go give these talks. And I trust you can write it too, right? Like you're good. All right, so some thoughts. How's my overall time? It's a mystery. Pretty good. Some thoughts on overall being a faculty member. When I got full professor, this is no joke. I didn't know what I'm supposed to do because the rules for me to get tenure were clear and the rules for me to get the last promotion were clear. And then after that, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like now I'm just, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only person who's like, So I called Doug Woods and I was like, Doug, I'm feeling a little like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next year. And he said, what do you enjoy doing? And that was an easy answer. Psych tip, when people give you a fast answer, that's a big, powerful one. I said, I like working with grad students. He said, do that. So for about 10 or 12 years, that's just what I do. Like, I don't watch my pubs. I don't count them. I don't watch the dollars, besides the point I have to pay you guys. Like, I try to help my grad students be successful. I'm the first author on like one publication a year. And if you know how many I've published, that's like a small percent. You are the first authors on everything. I don't really try to do talks. I try to give my students the talks. I try to move them forward, and that is so much more fun. I hope the next slide is what I think it is, because when I focus on the process, I'm having a great time. And then what's really cool is the outcome is better than it's ever been. I help them be successful, and oh my gosh, I am more successful than I've ever been as a professional because they're even more successful, and I'm having a lot of enjoyment in it. And I do, once a year when I meet with Scott Bates, I have to count up the outcome and I see it's working, right? And that's great. Globally, values and ACT are the things that provide us joy, are reinforcers to us, are powerful things that are meaningful. And I'm 47 years old. I've been a professor for, I think, 19 years. I feel like I have as much energy as when I started. I love it. I think it's interesting. I love my weekends. I love my nights. Life is fun because of that values thing. Like I orient my time towards things that I find interesting and meaningful, and I don't feel like I'm burning out. I like this. I am that kind of person who if I won the lottery, I would totally do this. There are some things I might take out, but I would leave in a lot of it because it matches my values, and that is fun. The skills that got me here are not the ones I need now. That goes back to that point of what I'm doing now. I didn't learn any of this in grad school. I feel like I'm so much more of like a business manager or something, and just being open to the idea that I have to keep growing and learn new skills. And I think if I'm right, no, the last one will have it. I'll go this and I'll jump back. The learning new skills, I'm around so many incredibly talented people who do it so much better than me. And they have helped me fill in these skills that I don't have. Like I look at Gretchen Peacock, she's a great manager. She is great at like moving all these things forward. You know, like Greg Madden, like when I wrote a grant with Greg, I realized how bad I was at writing grants and how much better Greg is at writing grants. And right, that helped me a lot. There's a professor out there named Eric Storch, and I know one of my students worked with him. I think I've had 4 work with him. To the professors in this room, like what is the most publications anyone can publish in a year? Yeah, Eric Storch is way beyond that, right? He's an 80 a year guy, and he's my friend, and I love talking to him. I don't want to be an 80 a year guy. I know what that is, but it's really interesting to hear what he does. He's got really interesting systems in the way he runs his group and the way he does things, and I've learned moves from him to help me through. So, yeah, when people are killing it, just that's awesome. Just hang around them, learn how to do it. And like we have that everywhere. And there's one slide that I skipped, so let me. I feel like this just kind of goes back to the whole burnout thing, that running at that race pace is, and that's what I do. Like I move at this race pace, and like I jump into things that maybe I don't have time for, and I realize that was too much, then I kind of back off. That like I don't let the chatter get in of like, that's not your space, you shouldn't try that. Like I'm more of the like jump in and try, and if it works, great, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, then you got to back out of that. But like the chatter of like that's not your place, or you shouldn't be there. Okay, there are places I shouldn't be, but I don't let that get in the way too much, right? And then I think that's opened a lot of really cool doors and allowed things to expand. All right. So that is everything. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of you very much. I don't mind fielding the questions. We have time for questions because we have, I don't know what time it is. Yeah, we have the room for 45 minutes. We're not going to do 45 minutes of questions, but 15 maybe, and then a half an hour of drinking Utah State punch, which is always there. So what thoughts do you have? Top tips for mentors, good and bad. You know, I'm not prepared for this question. So I think one is, this is a psychology move, that you don't always respond to the words that your client is saying, you respond to the function of what they're saying. So when a student comes to you and needs something, sometimes you have to use your kind of like spider skills, experiment skills, and figure out like what they really need here. So like if the student is saying, I can't keep up, they may not need, organizational skills. You may need to be like, what is going on, big picture, that is leading to you getting caught in this place. And then I don't know if this is a warning, hope it's okay if my advisors see this or don't, but I enjoyed my relationship with my advisor when the boundaries were clear. That worked better for me. When my boundaries were unclear, I didn't know if I was going into the office to get invited to go out that night or to go do better on a class. And so with my students, I always say like, we are friendly, but you also know like what this relationship is. And that has worked for me and for my style. So that would be something I think, helping your students understand where these sort of lines are so that they can feel comfortable in this relationship while also supported, right? And then if you go up to the next one, like I feel like I'm catching what they need and trying to offer that to them when they need it. Yeah, and hold all these statements loosely because I am constantly messing that up, right? Still, like saying yes to things I shouldn't. I don't really have the problem of saying no to things I should. I don't say no too often. I say yes too often. But I could say, watch the function of why you're saying yes or no. So if it's like, I don't want to disappoint that person, if FOMO, if I feel like I'm going to miss out on something cool, those aren't really good reasons to say yes. I would probably say yes if it aligns with your values, if it aligns with things you're excited about. Like, do that. Like I recently, one of my students, Clarissa and Eric, they're graduates, they were writing a book and they said, do you want to co-author it? And I literally said, look, you should take me off this invite. If you want to leave me on, you can leave me on. But here's the thing, I'm not motivated. I'm not interested. I'm like, I want my name on the book because it sounds interesting, but I'm not going to be that right guy because the topic wasn't that interesting to me, but like I want to be included. I want to be left out, but I didn't really. And I just admitted it to them and they're like, yeah, it sounds like you don't have the right motivation here. And I was like, good, it was hard for me to say no, but I like nudged you to saying no for me. So I'll repeat the question for those in the back. How do you deal with a student who is struggling and you're not exactly sure why they're struggling, but you really wish the best for them, but you don't know how to get it moving? Yeah. There's some lines. I think I made a joke when I got the Career Teaching Award that like all you need is a Ph.D. in clinical psych and you're going to be just fine. I think it's some of those. The second degree. I think it's some of those skills. So like there's a lesson in. We say it all the time in being a therapist. You shouldn't be working harder than your client, right? Like you shouldn't be mentoring harder than your students working. Like if you're at the point where like, right, you're getting burned out, then the odds are like they're equally getting burned out by all this, or it's like super weird if like you're putting in all this effort and they're not. But then I think the next part, which again, the psychology move, is like I don't know what's going on. And that's the slowing down and like figuring out what is the variable that's in the way for them. And it may be lack of motivation, it may be depression, it may be anxiety, it may be, right? So maybe what they need is to go to counseling CAPS, or maybe they don't have a value in the work that you're doing and they don't see where it goes, or maybe they should have been in math the whole time. So it's like, it's figuring out what's behind, I'm just picturing your field, there could be someone who's like, I want a job where I get to be outdoors. And they're like, I think my wife literally said this, oh my gosh, this is all math, and like, and maybe this isn't really it. And I'm not saying like coach them out, but like, well, then how do you find the reinforcers for them that's really going to click? And again, I have a benefit in that if you don't love the math of clinical psych, you can be a psychologist. There's a joke that, clinical psych is really the Trojan horse to become a statistician, right? Like really that's, in our field, they just are really good at math and really good therapists. Is AR changing our field? The answer is gonna be 100% for sure. And am I disappointed? Sometimes, because when I first saw it come out, I was like, oh no, right? Because it's therapy and like responding to statements. I mean, AI is so good at that. And I'm like, oh, I've spent my whole career trying to figure out how to do that and do it well. And now something can almost do it just as well like that. But I think we pouted for like 6 months and now we're totally on board. And like Mike Levin, literally, I have like 6 emails from him about this AI project we're going to do next. So yeah, it's going to be a huge part of our field. And I think in a way it is already. It will not never. I think there is a really good chance we'll always have a role. I think. Would I collaborate with the machine? Again, I think would I collaborate with the machine? I think there's the emotional side, and then there's the like once I get past that, because I really did when I saw like ChatGPT come out, I was just annoyed, and then I like how to like ramp up and get okay with it. And like I sometimes said like, oh, this would be about the time to retire. Like, because there's a lot to get on board with now fast. And then when I was like, oh, it's okay. Like so I think once I got past this annoyedness that it can answer things well. Yeah. So what is values in ACT? If you read a book on ACT, values would be big. And I think the easiest description is the motivators behind behaviors, when they're connected, when the motivator is tied to a value, then the behavior is so much easier to do. So like, for example, I literally did this during the talk. During each phase, I found people to talk to, and that like, I am motivated to teach my students. Like there's just, so when I connected to that, then the talk probably seemed more genuine. If my motivator was to look cool, the talk would have come off differently. Whereas like when I was like, well, what do I say to new faculty? And I connected to that value of like being a teacher mentor, then that stuff would kind of come off that way. Yeah, like when I'm feeling low on energy, I usually, and it's not a pep talk, I'm like, well, what here would like motivate me through this moment? And it's not a fake thing like an award. It's like the student would really appreciate good feedback, or this paper is going to make a difference when it's out there, or there's people with this disorder who can't get to resources and I can provide it. And when I connect to that, I get a little bit excited about the work. And I think you and I, Ben's one of my good friends, we've walked around and talked about this idea of, he's a poet, and like, you know, getting our work out because it'll impact people and make people's days brighter and inspire them. And when you connect to that, there's a little more behind it. Oh, can I give you 1 minute? Gosh, I hope so, right? Otherwise we have a problem. So it's a form of, yeah. No, so it's, generally it's a form of psychotherapy, but it can also be a form of training. So you could do it with like a group who's not your client, but you generally do it with a client. And it's to help them do something more successful in life. So whatever that is to them, it could be getting over their OCD, or it could be being a nicer partner in a relationship. And then the acceptance stuff is we all have thoughts, feelings, and emotions that get in the way of us doing our behavior. So instead of changing them first before you can do the things that you want to do, the acceptance is noticing your thoughts for what they are and making room for them, like a willingness. We use the word acceptance sometimes. So if you can notice your thoughts and your emotions, make room for them, connect with who you want to be, and then practice going in that direction, right? You can slowly get through these little roadblocks that we have in life. And again, it could be anything. It could be a guy with testicular cancer who's not going to his checkups because he's afraid of what the doctor might say. Or it could be someone with OCD who's afraid if they don't go up the stairs, 6 times in the right fashion that they will die of some horrible disease, right? It could work there too. Or a mom, how to be the most supportive mom she could be. It could work there too. So Mike and I struggled forever. And I feel like I'm getting a little closer. So when I said I need, okay, students, plug your ears. Finding people who match with my skills and my deficits are going to work the best. So my skills are, and my wife knows this, like I have ideas, I can talk, and I'm low on follow through, right? So finding people who like to follow through. So the question I ask usually is, tell me a time when given an opportunity or there's something out in front of you that you took kind of a mess and turned it into something really cool. So I mean, like you're at a lab, you could see there's some data that no one's been dealing with, that you asked, can I see those data? You went and got help from a statistician and you analyzed them. You went and got help from a writer and you wrote the paper, and then you brought a version of this to your PI. Like I want hard workers, right? I do get geniuses. I don't need geniuses. I need people who like to put in work. The thing I don't like are people who whine, right? Like if you're gonna come into my office and tell me like there's a problem and I want people who solve problems. I want people who jump in and make things happen. That's not the only kind of student to have, but that's what I'm bad at, right? So I want people who are good at that. And then we work pretty well together. Okay, did we do it?
I think so.
Okay.